Hey, it's Ben, and this is Drambo by Beef Street. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the poly to mono module, which is really useful. Um, Essentially, it takes poly voices, so anywhere from 2 to 8 voices, and it converts it into one mono voice. Not mono as in stereo mono, but mono as in not polyphonic. And there's a couple of reasons that you might want to do this. I'm going to just kind of go through a couple of them. But an example of how this is really useful. Say you have a patch where you're doing audio rate modulation on maybe either amplitude or like filter cutoff. So here I'm going to have the oscillator, which is a sine wave, modulate the cutoff frequency. Sounds like this. Or the amplitude, which sounds very similar. So you're going to notice, even though I'm playing multiple pitches, more than one voice, basically each voice is handling this modulation on its own. So it's still going to be sort of like smooth sounding because the frequency that's going through the filter is then being modulated by that exact same frequency. But if I wanted to make this a little bit dirtier, I could very easily do that. So what I'm going to do, I'll leave all of this here and take away all the modulation. Just leave it there. We're going to convert this into a mono signal, poly to mono. No controls, it just converts the signal into a monophonic voice. And then I'm going to add a filter. I'll just copy this filter actually. So it'll be exactly the same. And then I'm also going to add an amplifier. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is modulate this filter. And there's only one filter now, it's not 8 filters. I'm going to modulate it by the sound coming in. So let's do it on 1. Just 1 note. Sounds pretty similar to how it sounds here. It's a little bit different, probably because there's like another filter happening. But if I add in another note, so now it's like all of the frequencies going through here are going to be modulating whatever parameters instead of like modulation within each voice. So it basically just gives you much dirtier modulation. And that can sound kind of cool on amplitude as well. So it's great if you have like a high notes like kind of close together. So when you do it on an octave, it still sounds kind of clean. But then if you maybe add something really low, you get more like beating between the notes because of you're modulating a bunch of frequencies together. So that's just one example of how this can come in handy. So another would be if you instead of using modulation to dirty up your sound a little bit, you could use any of the distortion models. So here, this is almost like clean. You add just a little bit of saturation, or maybe like a lot. These are just different saturation models. Got folding, and that's a lot harsher. If you were to add this after the poly section, it's going to get dirty a lot quicker, and you're going to have like different harmonics in there. So saturation before these notes, saturation after. Before, after. And again, I think the reason that is because it's really like you have 8 or however many voices of saturation modules, shaper modules. And when you get different frequencies playing together, it's going to saturate differently than if it was just like one fundamental and then some additional harmonics above it. You get more inharmonic saturation, I think. I should probably stick away from trying to explain the science behind this because I don't really know it. But I know that it sounds different when it's after the poly 2 mono section. So, anyways, this doesn't have to be anything more involved than it is. I would encourage everyone to play around with different effects and modulations using poly to mono to convert your signal into a monophonic voice, and then seeing how different modulations and processors sound when it's on one voice versus 8 voices. If you have any ideas or you make something really cool using this principle, whatever, make sure you share it, send it to Patch Storage so other people can play with your creations. Have fun.